Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about how digital is transforming customer and client experiences. As you saw in the video, S&P Global, as a premier provider of data, insights, benchmarks, ratings around the world, is our vision is to power the markets of the future. And as you heard, one of our core tenets through which we envision to power the markets of the future is by driving customer experience. The other pillars are equally important. We'll talk a little bit more about that in our session. I'm very pleased to be joined today with my esteemed colleagues. Sarah Cottle, who's our head of insights. I'll ask Sarah to introduce a little bit more about herself in a bit. And Clemens Theim, he's the Chief Operating Officer for our China vertical, which is, we specifically picked that to talk about today because it's an extremely exciting opportunity for us where we were one of the first rating agencies and research agencies externally outside of China to be given the opportunity to do that. Welcome, Clems and Sarah. Good afternoon, I guess, for you. We were talking before this that we would have loved to host them in person, but maybe the situation becomes better and we will have that opportunity soon. I'll hand over to you, Sarah, if you can quickly introduce yourself before we go into some questions, and then Clems, you can also introduce yourself. Thank you.
So thank you so much for that introduction. I'm Sarah Cottle. I'm based in Singapore. Only sorry that I can't be with you in person today for this discussion. I'm part of the Market Intelligence Group in S&P Global, running our Insight Group, which really accommodates our news and research. So sharing content with our customers to help them make better decisions with conviction.
Hi, my name is Clemens Theim. I'm based in Hong Kong. And I'm the S&P Global China Chief Operating Officer. So my role and mission is to set up S&P Global's domestic business in China. And with that, set up operations, technology, digital infrastructure, cybersecurity, hire people and talent to really make sure that we localize our global business, comply with local regulations, and drive the growth of S&P Global in China. Very pleased to be with you here. Bit sad that I can't be in person, but I think even more pleased that technology makes it possible to be with you today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Clems and Sarah, for joining us. We'll get right in. We heard from Mark just now how data, while there is a lot of it, how do we really use that data and that information to drive consumer experience? But let's take a step back. I mean, you heard in the video, S&P Global believes that customer experience is the path forward to growth for businesses. Not only our business, but all businesses. Shaping customer experience will become better or will become more important than products or pricing or sales. And with that, Clems, I'd like to go to you and sort of ask the question, why does customer experience matter? Why is it so important?
Yeah, thanks, Majib. And I'd just like to add a bit more to what our president, Martina Cheung, already stated in the video, that is a critical factor for our business. So we see a fundamental change in how data companies collect information and how customers consume them. So with data vendors, they focus on automation, AI, and analytics. And as I think you've all heard in the conference so far, customers are accelerating their digital transformation. So they kind of try to minimize manual processes, automate, and really go paperless where they can. So this changes really how customers value services such as S&P's services in the information space. So their expectations are generally rising. I think there's more choice for them. they're getting more impatient and harder to please. If you can imagine, one of our key ways to interact with customers is through web pages. They're used to the Amazon experience, so the bar is constantly rising. You need to invest in usability. They're more willing to switch brands if needed. So more choice means for customers kind of like also makes it easier to switch. And I think most importantly, and like a critical challenge is that customer experience, according to market research, but also through our own customer engagements, will overtake product and price as one of the key brand differentiators. So the differentiators that we're used to, kind of like enhance the product and think about your price, may not be the key value drivers going forward. So what can we do? And I want to share a few experiences from the S&P side. So one of our own research capabilities, 451 Research, they've done a recent research, and they say that about half of digital leaders state that customer data and intelligence platforms will have the highest investments over the next 12 months. So really understanding your customer data and turning that into action is a key priority for clients. Coronavirus probably plays a role as well. You have less direct interactions, so you need to figure out other ways to really understand how your customers operate. To give you a simple example, in China, one of our key products that we deliver to our customers is our market intelligence platform that has all the information that our clients need to identify M&A opportunities, that lets them understand risks so they can invest their money safely. And we heard from our commercial team that the clients found the platform really, really hard to use, very slow. So we started looking at our own customer usage data. So unique customers using the website per day in China. And we found that compared to other parts of the world, it's 90% lower. So compared to other parts of the world, in China, only 10% of our existing users are actually using the platform. And if the platform is your key value driver, you have a problem. So we looked into the underlying reasons, and it's similar to many other international organizations that host platform outside China. It's the Chinese firewall kind of slows down the performance. So we localize the performance. Customers are now entering our platform through a local site. We'll take care of the rest. And from the day we deliver the solution, that usage jumped up to kind of like 90%. So we now have the same usage in China that we have elsewhere. So really understanding your customer by looking at customer data, turning it into action and solving their problems, I think is a critical factor. Another example is to create insights. The traditional model in the financial information space is to kind of provide data to your clients and let them figure out what to do with it. So if I'm a bank, I'm trying to figure out the credit risk of my counterpart or the company I want to lend to. I can look at the customer profile, financial statements, balance sheet, P&L, cash flow, payment history, are there any legal troubles? Or you can look at a credit rating. Brings it all together in 3 letters, AAA, BBB, CCC, or somewhere in between. And credit ratings are only available for a few companies, like a few thousand companies. So for example, we build models that take all the information that our clients typically look at and create probability of default models. Low probability of default means a low risk the customer will default on his payment, so good credit risk. So we provide that to our clients, and if they're interested in understanding all the details, they can look that up on the website as well. But providing insights really makes it easier for our customers to understand what's critical. Throughout the digital transformation, we also need to help them to consume the data in any which way they want to consume and need to consume the data. So really personalizing the experience is critical for us. So integrating front, mid, and back office is high on their agenda. So from our side, it's kind of like offering a web service for the front office, offering a data feed for the back office, and increasingly APIs, so customers can pick and choose which data they want and which part of the workflow. And then lastly, and I think Mark teed that one up for us quite well, I think the demand for data is exploding, and so is the number of data sources. And our clients are increasingly challenged with piecing this all together and making sense of the various data sources that they're offered with. So really bringing this all together on behalf of our customers is a critical part for us. So alternative data and adding alternative data into our existing platforms is critical. And we can't do this all ourselves, so we need to partner. We need to acquire companies where possible, as we've done with Kensho, 451 Research, etc. But really bringing it all together and simplifying it for our clients. I think those are some of the key areas we're focused on. And while the examples I gave are in the data space, I think they can be generalized to many other parts of the universe.
Yeah. Thanks, Clems. I think the summary, two key things that I learned or heard from Clems: changing based on customer needs, using digital technology and using technology solutions to provide insights to clients. Those are, I think, two key areas or focus points that can be looked at to enhance consumer experience and customer experience. Sarah, I'll go to you and talk a little bit about how does our data and content and insight and research support our clients amid this pandemic, amid this new normal that everybody speaks about. So if you can comment a little bit on that, please.
Yes, of course, Mujeeb. Thanks for that question. So I have a small issue with this phrase, the new normal. I think we need to be very careful about calling it normal, because what we've seen during this pandemic, and this applies in S&P Global, but more broadly in the world, is a massive acceleration of digitalization, of consumer habits changing and so on. And I think if we start to allow ourselves to think that where we land after this pandemic is normal, I'm afraid that innovation and that acceleration that we're seeing may slow down, right? We may consider ourselves in a normal BAU situation. So I would encourage people actually to think about a new world that we're in, where things are moving very, very fast, and acceleration of the digitalization is not going to stop, perhaps not sort of settle into a normality, right? Because I think that might stifle innovation. And how our customers have behaved and reacted around this crisis has been very, very interesting. I mean, what we see in any sector that we cover at S&P Global is when there is a period of uncertainty, when there's a crisis, we see an enormous increase in demand for our insights and for our research, because everybody from banks to investment community right across the board is looking for answers. They're looking for clarity. And so, to the point that Clemens made earlier, we have massive amounts of data. Really, the insights is what helps to drive the stickiness of our products back to the customers, because, they need us to help filter that data, and they need us to help make sense of that data, and really never more than in a time of crisis. And what we discovered, I'll reference also our own research group, 451, which looks at technology and consumer behavior around digitalization. The research that they brought to us was that 95% of respondents in a survey really have discovered they need to use new data at the moment to really augment the customer insights that they're looking for. And so, we're on hand, of course, with those new data sets, constantly building new ones to ensure that we support our customers around this really difficult period. And there's an enormous impact on digital consumer behavior that is emerging at this time. And, when we talk about what the future looks like and how we continue to support our customers, we found a very, very interesting breakdown of how we expect behaviors to change and adapt. And I'll share a couple of those figures with you. So looking forward, our 451 research group believes that 19% of those online will kind of revert to their previous behaviors, right? So they may have used the internet more during this period of crisis, but actually they're not believers and they're going to go backwards and stop doing that. But a big 50% are going to shift their lifestyle to more digitalization, more online purchasing, more online banking, and so on. So that's a big percentage. And then the third one is that 31% who were already digitally savvy, who were already living lives that were very closely connected to the digital world, are going to do more. So when you add up the 50% that are going to shift to a more digital lifestyle, plus the 31% who were already pretty, ensconced in that way of life and are going to do more, we really appreciate that this, to my earlier point, the innovation and the drive to keep improving the online experience for everyone just can't stop. And, at the risk of blinding you with data and statistics that we say we don't do, right? Because we like to filter these out and make them relevant. I hope this one sticks. The 88% of those who have shopped online, for example, or done some sort of consumer spending online, 88% say if they have a bad experience, they will not go back to that organization. And I think that's probably the one that I would try to focus on, because it's a massive proportion. And I think, if you're listening and thinking, yes, well, I tried to do, an online shopping the other day and I found that, the interface just wasn't friendly, or, it knocked me out of the system when I was just doing the last payment. These are things that will actually kill businesses and things that we really need to get right. So I want to just address a little bit, the drive for S&P Global and S&P Global Market Intelligence around sharing insight with our customers. It's really our purpose. And I think this goes back to Martina's video at the beginning, President of Market Intelligence. We have data, we have masses of data. And of course, that is a product that our customers want in all its shapes and forms, raw data also. But where we see real value and where we see supporting our customers at its absolute strongest is the insight that we drive from that data. So maybe an example of combining two data sets in a way that maybe some people wouldn't think about, right? We have enormous numbers of analysts, some very, very strong ones based in Pakistan working on my team. Delightful to work with them all. And they spend their time combining data sets to come up with truly unique, differentiating and fascinating insights. So what we have found through this pandemic, through this period of awful uncertainty from which I hope we're emerging, is that our engagement metrics as an organization have not suffered. In fact, it's been quite the opposite. Actually, we've provided thousands of articles, research, news, and data points to our customers through this period. One of the things, I'll give you an example that was particularly impactful, was supplying supply chain data to hospitals across the United States in the very early days of the pandemic through our supply chain specialists, Panjiva. So these actions, this connection with our customers, having a very purpose-driven lens on this, has actually led us to have our highest net promoter score ever on record during the worst months of the pandemic. So I think, really focusing in on the digital experience of our customers and ensuring that we're really pushing for their needs to be fulfilled is the key to that continued engagement.
Thanks, Sarah. Very insightful. I think, as you mentioned, how leveraging technology and the tools available to us, if we can drive our consumer experience, client experience, and how critical that will be in sustaining businesses and their growth. I think the example you gave where 88% of the people will decide whether they want to continue to give more business or generate new business will be entirely driven by the experience they have. Should be very, very telling, I think, to a lot of people here, because I'm sure you experience it in your businesses as well. I'll move back to Clems. And Clems, you talked about our expansion into China. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about how we've driven the experience of our customers there, and what are some of the milestones that we've accomplished since then as a result of that consumer experience?
Yeah, thanks, Mujib. I think China is probably one of the largest sort of single market opportunities that we see at S&P Global, and we're very committed to growing our business in China, as well as the broader Asia Pacific. I think what's critical is in China, and back to the customer experience point, is that it's a unique and a different market. And in order to succeed in the domestic market, the first step is really to understand how can you make a difference. So S&P has been established in China for quite some time. I think we set up our first office around 20 years ago. We're in a comfortable market position. However, the market position we're in is largely being a cross-border provider of information. So Chinese investors are looking at our global ratings to see where they can invest their money safely. The state-owned enterprises are looking at Capital IQ to identify global M&A opportunities, looking at global commodity prices as well as equity indices. So I think if you look at that market segment, it's a bit like the tip of the iceberg, right? We're comfortable in the tip of the iceberg that's above the water, but a real market opportunity is the 90% of the iceberg that's below the water. And in order to really go after that market segment, we have to fundamentally change the way we think. In order to be really relevant in the domestic markets, we have to lead with domestic content. So establishing the domestic rating agency is a logical step. So we're now the first agency that has a license, foreign agency that has a license to rate in the domestic bond markets. And on the market intelligence side, where content is a critical success factor, we're complementing that ratings content through credit information outside the rated universe. So information on private companies, analytics that's global, but that we localize through understanding local default data, a customer experience that is highly localized. So we're actually building a platform that is on Alibaba Cloud in China, doesn't leverage AWS that we're using outside China. It's not using any of our global platforms. We're building something specific to the market in local language, in a workflow that's tailored to our local customers. So we've launched that in December, and quickly we've gotten feedback from our customers that this is really hitting their pulse. It really helps them solve problems that they weren't able to solve before, by bringing together sort of our global expertise, but really localizing it and delivering it in a way that it would like to consume it. So for us, it's a first step. We see other opportunities to further localize our content and the experiences for our clients, such as ESG or TMT or financial institutions. But I think we have to be really careful in continuing to connect to our clients and really understand kind of like what are their priorities and preferences, and how can we best meet them.
Yep. Thanks, Clems. I think we heard a little bit about this yesterday during the business panel as well, around putting our clients first. And I think what it truly means, as Clems was talking about, taking your global expertise or expertise, if they are within a region or within a country, and really localizing them, transforming them, using the tools that we have available, using technologies that we have now available to localize them to the client that you're trying to impact, whether it's in a territory, in a region, in a country. I think that's the crux of sharing this particular use case, and that's how it's relevant, I believe, to other organizations or other leaders attending online or sitting here. I think that's the key takeaway from this particular point. Sarah, moving to you, and so you talked about how we have added value to our clients' workflows, and again, the last 1 year has really accelerated the need for collaboration anywhere, for for people to be able to pivot very quickly, new information. Can you talk a little bit about how we're adding value to our clients' existing workflow and sort of enabling, when we talk about powering the markets of the future, how are we doing that? If you can give a couple of examples of that.
Absolutely, Majib. So thank you. I mean, I think it's, we have evidence that we can collaborate from anywhere. I'm in my home in Singapore and speaking to you all around the world. I would encourage everyone to think about what opportunity does that anywhere collaboration present to us. We've mostly categorized it as bad, but I think there are some things that we can learn from it, and there are some things we can do better than we used to do. And I think one of the areas of opportunity around collaborating from anywhere is being able to drive for a more diverse workforce from any part of the world. So I think it's wonderful at S&P Global, for example, that we are much less restrictive around location of where we hire people. So, we would have wanted to hire people at one point who lived, close to one of our offices so that they could collaborate in person. Now we have a much wider lens on the talent available to us around the world to think about, well, does it really matter anymore if this person's in a city where we don't have an office? And I think it allows new people to come into the marketplace. I think we can increase the women in the workforce through this much more flexible working model that I think is coming. In addition, I think, as we think about powering the markets of the future, we need to think about the way consumer habits are changing and, who is starting to spend the money. So women around the world are starting to have a lot more spending power. And I think the success of many of our businesses really depends on having a really diverse set of voices around the table, including women in the workforce, because we're driving products that will suit those new consumers. And if we don't have that insight, we may be leaving money on the table, which is never a good option. So I think, that diversity of workforce is an opportunity around the anywhere collaboration piece, and will help us to adapt to the changes that are happening so fast. We really need to be on top of those. So a couple of other areas where S&P Global is really thinking about adding value to the workflows of our customers, in particular in this new space, in this new environment that we find ourselves in. So, I can talk a little bit about one of our really popular offerings, which is around supply chain data. And, a traditional use case for supply chain data would be to sell a company supply chain data so that they can optimize their own supply chain. And it's quite a limited use case. And I think, very valuable, very important. But what we're seeing is an increasing sophistication of use of that data. So actually what we can do, for example, is link supply chain data with company financial information. And, what does that do for us? That allows us to look at a location. Let's say, for example, a major storm hits a port. It allows us to quickly, in real time, identify the public companies that are in that location that may be impacted. We can then start to evaluate the impact of this, natural disaster or whatever it may be, that is going to ripple through the supply chain and then ultimately impact that company's sales. And in a very short period of time, by linking the data sets, we're able to drive insights about what the impact of some of these events might be. And one last point, which I know was mentioned in Martina's video at the beginning of this session, our flexible and open distribution, which is one of the 3 key pillars of the market intelligence strategy. So, as the digital landscape evolves, it's increasingly important that we meet our customers where they are and where they want to be. So in other words, we have a desktop, but somebody may want to take our data through API feeds or cloud. Third-party distribution. We really believe that to get into our customers' workflows in the most supportive, the most helpful way we can, being part of all of these different types of flexible distribution is absolutely critical to us.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sarah. I think the use case that Sarah shared is really interesting. A classic example of how technology has really allowed us to elevate consumer and client experience. The example of where you take traditional data on supply chain, link it with financial data. That capability didn't exist perhaps 3 years ago, and create a new experience, create a new insight for your clients and customers. And again, that example, while it's specific to S&P, but I think that opportunity exists for each and every business, each and every use case, to see what kind of, using new capabilities that this technological age has offered you, what new experiences can you give to your clients? Because that is where I think you will find tremendous opportunity for growth. Clems and Sarah, we're going to move to some comments. We have some really interesting ones on this app that we're using. Slido, I'll encourage everybody sitting here or attending online, please engage with us. Slido, DX221 is our code. You can add comments there. So I'll give one to both of you. It's a very interesting one. As we navigate and enhance customer experience, how do we ensure compliance? I mean, it says here, how do we ensure compliance to GDPR? But I think the broader question is, how do we ensure issues around privacy and security of data, et cetera? Any comments on that, Clems or Sarah?
Yeah, I think it's a... Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, well, I'll jump in and please feel free to add your comments. So I think, it's obviously a critical topic that we take incredibly seriously. It's every week, I think we all receive emails from consumer companies that we may be connected to that says, we're just letting you know that there's a possibility there's been a data breach. We are spending enormous amounts of time and money ensuring that our customers' data is always secure. We have, of course, a very robust set of internal experts and lawyers who are constantly helping us to make sure that whatever workflow we're dealing with, they're on hand to make sure that we ensure the privacy of our customers and our employees' data as well, which is also critically important. So I'll ask Clem to add any thoughts he might have.
And I would totally echo that. I think, I've mentioned a statistic from 451 Research that over half of the CIOs mentioned that investment into customer data and analytics is on top of their agenda in the next 12 months. If you drill down within that segment, customer privacy is a top priority for everybody. The customer privacy and cybersecurity, those are two areas where you cannot afford any errors. Like one glitch and you're in the press and it has a significantly negative impact to your business. So for us, it's a top priority. And it's a mix of skills that you need. You need, understand the laws. You need to have technology, digital infrastructure, cloud services, all working together in tandem to make sure that we protect that data. And then we need to make sure that we understand this across geographies. Like Europe has strong regulation with GDPR. China has emerging regulation that is quite different. And the US administration over the last couple of years has definitely set some marks around how they see critical data in the US to be protected. So for global companies, it is a challenge, but it continues to be a top priority.
Yeah. And I'll just there's a question around biggest challenges that we foresee. I think both Sarah and Clems spoke about that. One of the things is, how do we navigate? How do we continuously drive consumer and client experience, navigating, the issues such as data privacy, more regulated economies around the world, et cetera. I think that's what I'll take. There's a fairly long comment around, did the pandemic really push organizations to, leapfrog digitally and transform? How will we sustain it? Quick comments, both Sarah and Clems on that. And then also if you can share a couple of takeaways, in your individual views, what are one or two things that are key to leveraging consumer experience? So, two short question. Sarah, you want to go first?
Sure. So how do we keep up the pace, I guess, is one of the questions. And, I think it's critical that we do, because I think the bar is always rising. And if we allow ourselves to slip a little bit in thinking about our digital customer experience, we're going to fall behind, right? So I think it's almost sort of a race to the top to make sure that this experience is constantly improving. And I think Clem referenced this earlier, that the consumer experience around digital is becoming so smooth and seamless. You know, if I finish this conversation today and I want to order my lunch and a taxi and I want to have some shopping delivered, I can do it all seamlessly on one app. I don't have to look at my credit card. It's becoming, you know, there's convergence of many of the activities that we have in the consumer space. And I think for companies that are serving the financial sector or other industries, we have to learn from that, and we have to understand how people want to have a smooth and integrated experience. And the combination of working from home means that we're often dealing with the two things at once, right? Our personal lives as consumers, but also our business lives. So how do we learn from the fast-moving consumer success? And how do we also try to integrate those things so that people can use as few applications and as few systems as possible to live their lives and do their work successfully? So I think that's, you know, on the innovation piece is where I would focus. And just a couple of quick takeaways before I hand over to Clem for his thoughts. I think I have three quick ones that I've been jotting down during this, and I won't speak at length on each one, but very briefly, I think seamless and, again, borrowing from Clem, localized customer experience is critically important. You know, if we innovate and have one app to do everything, well, great, but you want to make sure that that is relevant to your local consumer or your local audience. So I think that localization is critical. I'd point again to diversity of workforce. Let's not leave half the ideas behind, right? Let's get everyone around the table so we can ensure that we have the most robust conversation and we have the, you know, the all consumers represented at decision-making bodies on boards in companies and so on. And then the last one, I would just say three words, right? Innovation, innovation, innovation. This is where we need to focus to make sure that that high bar is constantly moving higher.
Great.
And maybe a couple of points on the part of the question, are our clients really embracing the digital transformation? I'd say not everybody in the same way. There's definitely faster movers and slower movers. Some of it is totally driven by necessity. So, for example, in China, about a year ago, we wouldn't do a lot of webinars because clients wanted to really have our analysts in front of them in person, and that was the only thing that they would see really as kind of like valuable to them. Like with the pandemic, this has, you know, it just wasn't possible. So over the last year, we've done, I think, about like 70 webinars with over 30,000 attendees. And I think that's something, it's here to stay. Yes, we will go back to do in-person seminars, but it doesn't have to be every couple of weeks. And then I think we see, you know, some clients are more rigid because they're large, they're established, their internal processes don't allow them to switch quickly. But I think the opportunity really lies for those companies that are able to take advantage of the digital transformation. I think, again, for us as a vendor or partner, it's important that we support our customers in the journey, because that's really when they see an opportunity and we make it easy for them to get on the way with the digital transformation. I think this is really when they can accelerate.
Excellent. Thanks, Clems. Thanks, Sarah. I think we're out of time as well. I'll just wrap up. Obviously, I thank Ali and Ames for inviting us to share a little bit of how we are driving consumer experience in this digital age. I would also like to thank Clems and Sarah for taking time out to join us and share their experiences and thoughts. Thank you very much, guys, and I can't wait to see you again, maybe here or in some other part of the world. So thank you very much once again for joining us. For everybody here, I think as we talked about in the takeaways, you know, we've heard this yesterday during various panel conversations. Businesses are striving to drive customer experience because I think this is going to be the third time we're sharing this. That consumer experience is going to become a key differentiating factor, more than product, more than price, more than anything else. experience that the consumer and your clients have is going to dictate how fast, how rapid you can grow and evolve your business. The more we invest in it, the better it is for us. I thank you very much. Thank you for the online audience who engaged with us as well and gave us some interesting comments. With that, I'll hand back to Ali. Once again, thank you, Clems and Sarah.
Thanks, Majib.